All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, you already know what time it is, and right here, right now, we are actually live in full effect, and we actually have an iconic hip-hop pioneering MC. He is actually one of the very first individuals to ever be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We have the one and only Rahiem right here, live on the line, man. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great, brother. How are you?
I am doing great, man. I am doing phenomenal. And I have to say, first and foremost, man, thank you so much for just giving us a bit of your time here this evening and just blessing my radio station with a little bit of your time, man. I've been a fan for a long time, so thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for having me. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well. But I know you're a very busy guy, Rahiem, so I'm going to dive right into this interview. But I want to take you back right to the very beginning, where you actually started as a member of the pioneering hip-hop group Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. I was wondering, what is the story behind that group, and of course, how did you guys initially get connected?
Well, I was a member of another legendary group prior to joining Grandmaster Flash, and they were known as the Funky Four. And I was like the leader of the Funky Four. We had the first female MC, Shaw Rock. And we battled Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Four May 11th, 1979 at the Webster Avenue PAL in the Bronx. And Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Four, they won the battle, but a few days after the battle, Melly Mel, and at the time his name was Mr. Ness, he later changed it to Scorpio. They showed up at my mom's house and asked me if I would be willing to join their group because they liked the way that I performed. And so maybe about a month later, I joined their group and we did our first performances, and then maybe about a month later, we recorded our first single.
And I have to ask as well, like I actually read as well that back in the day that for your very first single, you guys actually didn't get paid for that. Is that actually true? And if so, did you guys happen to get paid for that single throughout the years?
No, we never got paid for that single to this day. And to this day, we don't know any officers or executives of Brass Records. We've never met any, and that's the label that that song "We Rap More Mellow" was released under, and it wasn't released under our group name, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. It was actually released under a name called The Younger Generation.
And also as well, the one thing I've always wanted to know, in the year 1982, the Furious Five actually released the iconic record titled The Message. I was wondering if you can actually tell us the story behind this phenomenal project. And of course, did you guys think it would be as big as it is today when you guys first initially made that record?
Well, the story behind the recording of The Message was a guy by the name of Duke Booty, or Ed Fletcher. His government name, Duke Booty. His artist name is a musician. And he had the track for The Message for a couple of months before we actually signed with Sugar Hill Records. And he took it around to a few of the artists who were signed to Sugar Hill in hopes that they would be interested in recording it. And no one was interested in recording the song. And then Sylvia Robinson, the president of Sugar Hill Records, brought us The Message. And she told us if we recorded this song that it would take our careers to a whole new place. And we were against recording The Message initially because It was contrary to what rap music was about at the time. Rap music was much more frivolous and much more about a party, and so the message was complete contrary to that. And the hottest rap song at the time was Planet Rock by Soul Sonic Force. And so we felt like, we would best serve ourselves if we went in the studio and recorded a song that was like Planet Rock. And so Sylvia Robinson told us that if we went in the studio and recorded the message, that she would then let us record a song like Planet Rock. So we did both, and she was right.
And I gotta say as well, in my personal opinion, that song has one of the most iconic hip-hop beats ever, and I don't think anything in my personal opinion will ever top that. And the one thing that I was really drawn to that song on, how it was actually about a 7-minute long song. Back in those days, not a lot of people actually had songs out that long. What actually made you guys decide to make it such a long song?
Well, actually, back in those days, songs were pretty long. Disco music was kind of like the dominant genre of music at the time. And if you listen to the radio, especially when they gave party mixes and stuff like that, they would play disco 45s, 12-inch singles. At first, records, a 45 was, a small disc. But then they started making, super disco versions of these records. And I guess the disco versions would be pressed up on 12-inch copies, and that would make the record for extended play. And so our records were indicative of that same, format.
And also as well, before we move off the topic of the message, I also remember as well that the iconic Ice Cube actually sampled that song sampled the message in his song "Check Yourself." I was wondering, when you guys actually first heard Ice Cube's sample, what was your opinion on him actually using your guys' music for his legendary song?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but my initial opinion was I thought that Ice Cube rendition of the song, Ice Cube and DOS Effects, I thought that they did a great rendition, and I knew that eventually, if their rendition got as much play or more than ours, I knew that we would be expecting some money.
And also as well, in the early 1990s, you actually transitioned from actually being a phenomenal MC into a professional vocalist for the iconic R&B soundtrack single, "Does Your Man Know About Me?" I was wondering, what actually made you decide to venture into the genre of R&B?
Well, I was having dinner one night at a restaurant with a lady friend, and these two guys, Hank Shockley from Public Enemy and Bill Stephanie, approached me in the restaurant and was like, "Do you still sing?" And I said, "Yeah, sometimes, but more often than not in the shower." And they were like, "Well, how about if we give you a signing bonus and we sign you to be like because we just got a record label distributed through MCA, and how about if we sign you and give you a signing bonus to be our first R&B artist? So I was like, okay. So that's how I got that deal.
And also, as well, that amazing song actually landed on the soundtrack for Tupac's first lead film role on the movie Juice. I was wondering, could you tell us a bit more about that opportunity? And of course, what was it like actually just being a part of that iconic movie soundtrack?
Well, I had no idea whatsoever that my song even made soundtrack until one day. I remember Hank Shockley calling me and asking me if I would be interested in him submitting my song to be on the Juice soundtrack. And I'm like, what? Is that a trick question? Of course I'm interested. And so he's like, okay, well, I'll get back to you, and I'll let you know what they say. So I said, okay, no problem. So, I don't know, a couple of days go by, and he gets back to me, and he says, listen, they love your song, and they want it to be on the soundtrack, but there's one problem. I said, okay, so what's the problem? He said, MCA Records said that you would have to relinquish all of your publishing rights to them in order for your song to be on the Juice soundtrack. I said, oh, okay, well, how about if you tell MCA Records for me to take a flying leap at a rolling donut? And he was like, oh, so you're not taking that deal? I said, absolutely not. So we hung up, and I left it at that. So it was kind of bothering me. And so I called MCA in L.A. and spoke to a friend of mine, Brute Bailey, who worked at promotion at the time. He worked in the promotional department for MCA Records. And as soon as he took my call, he knew it was me calling because reception had to transfer the call to him. As soon as he picked up the call, he started singing my song, Does Your Man Know About? And I'm like, wait a minute, how do you know that song? He's like, what do you mean, how do I know that song? It's on the Juice soundtrack. I said, wait a minute, my song is on the Juice soundtrack? But I was told that unless I gave MCA all of my publishing, that my song couldn't be on the soundtrack. He was like, I don't know who told you that, but your song is on the soundtrack. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that's how it got on.
And I gotta say as well, whoever actually told you that, they definitely knew what you had there, because that song is an instant classic.
Thank you.
And also as well, aside from being an MC and of course a very amazing singer, you also had a show on Hot 97 in the early 1990s where you actually had the opportunity to help Biggie Smalls, also known as Notorious B.I.G., to actually help break his phenomenal single Juicy. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners a bit more about that, and of course, what was it like actually just meeting Biggie and breaking that classic single?
Well, Biggie was very, very embracing, really cool, humble guy, really funny, laid back, and immensely talented. And Biggie wasn't the only artist that we helped break their record when they were first coming out. We helped break Biggie. We helped break Brandy. We played her first song, I Want to Be Down. We had her on the show. And we actually discovered Big Pun. Unbeknownst to the majority of people, a lot of people believe, and I believe that Fat Joe is credited with discovering Big Pun, which is not true. Big Pun was our our weekly call-in winner on the Mic Check show on Hot 97. And the format of our show was basically we would perform live on the air. We would have our listening audience call in and display any talent that they had. And based on their level of talent, if they could continuously win, being our call-in winner, eventually we had a live broadcast of the Mic Check show from this strip joint called the Playhouse. And so Big Pun, being our weekly winner, our weekly call-in winner, he began coming to the strip joint called the Playhouse and performing there, and he was our winner there as well. And our ex-manager, Mickey Benson, who was also the manager of Ice-T and Fat Joe, was the one who made the connection between Big Pun and Fat Joe, and that's how Big Pun got on.
And I gotta say as well, in my personal opinion, Big Pun had one of the meanest lyrical flows ever. And I have to ask, when you guys actually first heard him call in on the very first initial phone call, and when you actually heard him just freestyle the way he did, what was going on through your guys' heads? Did you guys ever hear anything like that before during a call-in, or did he completely blow your mind?
No, we were blown away, and it was effortless on his part. He did this weekly. Every time he called in, we were blown away, and that was the reason why we were like, yo, you actually have to come to the Playhouse so we can see you do this, because you're amazing. And personally, as MCs go, I really don't feel like Big Pun gets the credibility that he deserves, even though, you know, his life was by, you know, his debilitating health conditions. But you know, I think he was one of the greatest as well.
And also as well, I actually read that you actually had the opportunity to perform on The Late Show with David Letterman. I was wondering if you can tell our listeners a bit more about that opportunity, and of course, what was it like actually taking the stage at the iconic Ed Sullivan Theater in New York City?
Oh, wow. It was definitely a great, amazing experience. The Ed Sullivan Theater is was historically restored, and it's a beautiful place. And Dave Letterman, he's really cool, and we called him the Iceman when we met him, when we did his show, because in his contract, David Letterman's set can't be above 32 degrees Fahrenheit because he can't break a sweat. So it was freezing cold on his set, and we all kept our coats on.
See, I'm going to be honest, I watched David Letterman every single night until he actually went out the air, and I never knew I never knew that his set was actually like that, but it definitely explains it, because, you know, how he'd run out onto the stage. I was always like, man, he's getting older. How is he not sweating by doing that? But that right there answers all my questions. But the one thing I have to ask about performing there, because obviously performing on a late night talk show is a little bit different than just going on stage at like an arena or a stadium. I have to ask, what stipulations do they have in play when you actually go out there and perform on one of these late night talk shows?
I can't really recall any major stipulations at the moment that jump out at me that we had to adhere to in order to perform. It was pretty straightforward. You know, we're AFTRA members, the American Federation of Television Radio Artists, and so, you know, we adhered to all AFTRA guidelines and that sort of thing, and that was before AFTRA and SAG merged, the Screen Actors Guild, and so it was pretty straightforward. You know, there were no really special accommodations or any special provisions that we had to make in order to be performers on the Dave Letterman show.
And also as well, in the year 2007, you were actually featured on Nas's 12-inch record titled Where Are They Now? 80s Remix, alongside individuals like Lords of the Underground, Father MC, Rob Bass, and a dozen others. I was wondering, what is the story behind that record? And of course, how did you initially get connected with New York's own Nas?
Well, one of my good friends, his name is DJ Rip. He's with a DJ coalition called the CKOR-DBs. He and I met Nas at his birthday party, and we remained in contact through his ex-wife, Khalees. And so Nas reached out to me and asked me if I could help him assemble some of the artists from the 80s in order to be on this Where Are They Now song. And so most of the artists that represented the 80s actually recorded their verses at my recording studio, and then I delivered their recordings to Nas. And so I helped to, although I wasn't credited for it, I helped to produce the record.
And I have to say as well, in my personal opinion, that song was absolutely phenomenal, just having all those iconic artists together on one track. Did all you guys just kind of send your songs in, or did you guys actually get together in one studio and actually kind of all come together to record the song?
The majority of the East Coast artists actually got together because, as I said, most of them recorded their verses in my recording studio. So most of them came to my recording studio to record their verses, and so we physically had to interact. So it was cool.
And also as well, in the same year of 2007, yourself, along with the rest of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, became the very first hip-hop performers to actually be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I was wondering, can you tell us a bit more about that? And of course, how does it feel to have this huge accomplishment under your guys' belts? Because that's actually huge for hip-hop, you guys being the very first individuals.
Yeah, it was definitely a tremendous honor. That we didn't see coming. Well, we saw it coming by 2007, but we were nominated in years prior to 2007. I believe it was either 2002 or 2004. We were nominated, but we didn't get in. And so I remember we were called by the guy, Tom Silverman from Tommy Boy Records. He called me and said a couple of months before we were inducted, he said, "Listen, I'm on the voting committee for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it is my duty to see to it that you guys are the first rap to get inducted, and I'm going to make it happen. And it's happening this March, and I just wanted you to be the first to know. And so I was like, wow, are you serious? And sure enough, when March came around, we became the first.
And I gotta say as well, first and foremost, congratulations to yourself and the rest of the group for that, because I gotta say, you guys definitely deserve that. In my personal opinion, you guys actually helped evolutionize hip-hop way back in the day, and you guys are still doing it today as well. So I gotta say, I couldn't picture anybody else being nominated for the first individuals in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
But also as well, in 2017, I actually read via IMDb that you were actually in a television show titled Music and Murder, where you actually portrayed an individual by the name of Uncle Leo. I was wondering, what made you decide to venture into acting? And of course, what was it like actually just being on set of that show?
Acting is another muscle. Another muscle in the same, I guess, anatomical makeup of being a vocalist, performer, and standing on stage every night, performing rap songs in front of a live audience. Is I would say I guess compare it to being an actor, a Broadway actor, performing in front of a live audience, in a play. And so that made it make sense to me, to pursue it, to do it. I got an opportunity. I got a few opportunities to take these small parts through different directors that I knew personally, and as long as it made sense to me, and I added something to the project, then I will continue to take acting roles. It's definitely a passion of mine, and I'm a character of sorts. I do many different types of, accents and that sort of thing. So acting is kind of natural to me. But I was also involved in a Netflix original series. I don't know if you're aware, called The Get Down. That is loosely based on the story of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, and Nas and I co-wrote the lyrics.
That I did not know, but I definitely have to go back and actually watch that.
Mm-hmm. And I had to coach Will Smith's son, Jaden Smith, along with the other young actors who were portraying a fictitious group loosely based on Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, called the Get Down Brothers.
And the one thing I do have to ask, because I do know a lot of individuals that they're venturing into, like, with technology nowadays, pretty much anybody can really put together a movie of some sort. If individuals do want to get a hold of you to kind of present a script to you for potential acting roles or even producing, how would individuals actually go about getting a hold of you for pertaining to this business matter?
You can email my management at Rahiem, RAHIEM .official@gmail.com.
But also as well, Rahiem, I have to ask, man, what is next for yourself? Is there anything we happen to miss during this broadcast? Anything else you would still like to talk about or promote? Well, we still got you here live on the Canadian FM dial this evening.
Coming up, I'm working on some new music, a solo project. I'm not signed to a label. It's going to be independent. I'm working on my autobiography, which I expect to be finished with in about the next 2 or 3 months. And I'm working on a biopic about my group.
And also, Rahiem, this is the time in the interview that I give a chance for the individual that slides into the radio station airwaves, just like a chance to give like shoutouts to whomever they want to give shoutouts to, but most of all your social media handles. That way our listeners can follow you and stay updated on everything you got going on if they're not already doing so.
Sure. All you need is one social media handle, which is Rahiem, RAHIEM .official, and that's on Instagram, and that'll take you to all of my other social medias.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, Rahiem, thank you so much for just taking the time out of your busy evening and sliding into the 97.7 FM airwaves this evening. It definitely was an honor, and most definitely a privilege.
Thank you for having me.
You are most certainly welcome, and definitely Happy New Year, and also as well, have yourself a wonderful night. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.